Greetings, welcome, folks, to Prehistory Guys Unplugged. Only slightly different format for tonight. I mean, so far, you'll all recognise where we're coming from. Nothing changed so far. Very briefly, though, before we launch off in it, the idea is that it's just a bit more relaxed. There's not so many bells and whistles for me this end to press and worry about, and hopefully, with a more relaxed thing, we can pay more attention to everything that's going on in the chat. So if you've got questions and all the rest of it, we'll be able to, between the two of us, pay more attention. So it's more like a happy New Year. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Martin. Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, Jimmy, Martin, it's good to see you.
Yeah. So hopefully, the idea is this is more like a podcast, basically, than a sort of show, than a YouTube show. So that's the idea. No idea how long we're going to be tonight. We've got quite a few items to get through. Lots of fascinating stuff. And of course, we've got our wonderful guest, Allison. Do you know what, Allison? I'm going to bring you in, right? I'm going to bring you in. And when we do, there we go. Now,
hello, darling.
Hello.
Oh, yay!
Now, huge feedback.
Right. Under control now.
Wow, could do with earphones, couldn't we?
Need headphones, Allison, or turn your loudspeaker. Yeah, or turn your loudspeakers down. Thanks very much indeed. Listen, while Allison sorts herself out, what we have here in the corner here, we have a British archaeologist who was principal curator of early prehistory at National Museum Scotland, where she worked from 1987 to 2019. She specialises in the Neolithic, Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age of Britain and Ireland, and particularly in ceramics and stone axe heads. She was president of the Prehistoric Society from 2010 to 2014 and is protégée coordinator for Britain, Ireland and the Isle of Man in the Channel Islands, as well as being the chair of the Implement Petrology Group and a member of the several editorial boards. Research topics include the Mesolithic Neolithic transition and the prehistoric jewellery of jet and jet-like materials, faience and amber. Sheridan was awarded the 2018 British Academy Graham Clark Award medal for outstanding work in prehistoric archaeology. In July 2019, she was elected Fellow of the British Academy. In 2020, she was voted Archaeologist of the Year by current archaeology readers and presented the prestigious Rhind Lectures hosted by the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland on the topic of Neolithic Scotland, the big picture and detailed narratives. Are there any other crimes you wish to be taken into account?
That's enough.
I have to say, if Alison just stops listening for a moment, that she is a total giant in the world of archaeology. Look at that; it's a thing of beauty, and
wow.
and Michael and I feel utterly blessed to be able to call her our friend. She is an absolute a font of wisdom. It's honestly. And the other thing, of course, is that she never sleeps. Sometimes I say to Michael, we're having a late night meeting or an evening meeting, and I said, do you know what, I'm going to ask Alison that? And I send Alison an email, and she replies within 5 minutes usually. You need to get out more.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we wouldn't be where we are today quite. It would be a completely different trajectory if it wasn't for Alison as well. Alison,
That's true.
Is this true?
It's true.
Alison, you're still a bit quiet. I don't know if you can turn yourself up your end. You were quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a bit better. But
is that a bit louder now?
Yeah, that is.
Okay.
It could be a bit louder, but it's okay. I think it'll all register in the end. So anyway, just one last bit of housekeeping. before we launch off into whatever topics we've got here. If any of you feel like throwing money off at us at any time during the evening or whatever, well, thank you for thinking of it in the first place. There are 3 ways you can do it. There's a Patreon link in the description before, and also a Buy Me a Coffee campaign. A link to that is in the description below. That'll take you through to I'll talk a bit about our film fundraising a bit later on. There's a third way I think not that many people know about, but there's a thanks button just down there. No, the other way, just down there, depending where you're watching it. A YouTube thanks button, and it's a very, very easy and simple way of bunging a few quid. Not just us, but anybody you like on YouTube. That's it. Rupert, I'm sorry, I've been wittering and introducing
It's
Allison.
all right, I'm quite happy to sit and listen to you witter. I've been reading the comments. Yes. What are you? Are you just randomly passing it over? Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you know what? It was Michael really who had the idea that because there is a huge amount of prep, as you can imagine. There's a huge amount of prep that goes into our shows, and something that we have told you a number of times before is, that we might have, say, of the news items, we might have like 30 news items that we pick out as being worthy of attention, but we only ever put 3 or 4 in the show, because that's just all there's time for. And then there have been other times where Alison's joined us before. James, who I know, James Dilly is, he's here with us tonight. I saw him in the chat. James has been a guest on the show a number of times. And the thing is that it's always lovely when we have somebody else that we can just join in the chat. So it's not just we two being predictable. So we decided that we'd make this a much less formal affair so that we can chat about more news items. Michael doesn't have to press so many buttons and knobs and switches at his end as well. And so it'll just be a more relaxed thing where we're just chatting about various things between the 3 of us. And hopefully you'll like it. It's the first time we've tried this.
So, less about us then. Thank you for that. Allison, tell us, what's going on with you. I mean, we've got loads of stuff lined up to talk about, and maybe there's something burning with your, in your world that needs airing.
Well, I'm very busy.
Good.
I'm always very busy.
Yes, you are.
And one of the things that I'm doing is working with the government in Ireland, where they're trying to increase the number of sites on the UNESCO World Heritage tentative list. And so that work is absolutely fascinating. It's just brilliant.
Oh, great. We're back in Ireland in September, taking some people from top to bottom all round.
We are.
Fantastic.
Anyway, we'll talk about that later. So, shall I move on? So, we'll just plough on into the first thing that comes up for us. Shall I, Rupert?
Absolutely. It's informal. Let's see what happens.
I can't remember how I came across this, whether it was some tweet by somebody. It was probably a tweet by Sue Greeny, so she's prolific on Twitter. But I'd never heard of this before. But something called the Avery papers is coming to fruition. I'll read this. The Avery Papers is a 4-year Arts and Humanities Research Council funded project to develop, explore and digitise the multimedia archive of Avery's Neolithic origins and its subsequent life history. So fascinating. It's currently dated the first half of the 3rd millennium BCE. Megalithic monument to Avery, North Wiltshire, form part of the UNESCO Stonehenge and Avery World Heritage Site. Avery includes the world's largest stone circle at almost 350 metres across, with avenues of paired standing stones that extend for 3.5 kilometres, as if you didn't already know all that. The thing is, The only large-scale archaeological excavations to take place at Avery were carried out just before the outbreak of World War II. Would those be the Alexander Keeler? Yeah.
That's right.
Ones. Yeah. Materials and objects collected and made at this time were left under-analysed for decades, and as a result we have, until now, only a partial understanding of Avery's past and present. So what they're going to do is add to the archaeological work that ended so abruptly due to the war, bringing together finds from 1939 and subsequent excavations. The archive also includes creative work inspired by Avery, and these stories are just as important as the stones for understanding Avery today. The entire archive will be made available online in an open access basis for anyone to use for research, enjoyment and artistic projects. By providing fuller understanding of the history and modern significance of this World Heritage Site, the research and the creation of the multimedia digital archive will enable more effective heritage management, education and tourism programs. We look forward to visitors, enthusiasts, students of prehistory, artists, heritage organisations and the Prehistory Guys exploring the many stories of the origins and reuse of Avery across 5,000 years. So I love that, and I can't wait, because I think we'll be very tempted to do a deep dive there, Rupert, I suppose, when things do become available, because it's one of those principal sites that feeds into many of our thoughts about uses of henges and banks and ditches and I just hope that the release of such data is going to bring together a more cohesive understanding of
it'll be interesting to see quite how extensive it becomes, because some of you will have seen that we did a piece on one of the burials at Upton Lovell recently, Upton Lovell G2A to be specific. But the point is that it's not very far away. If you look at the Salisbury Plain as a whole, from a personal point of view, I call it the capital of Neolithic Britain. It's just the amount of stuff that was going on there is staggering, and yet we have, in our heads, we have all these, whether it's the bush barrow or there's so many different burials that are really they're all within bordering on shouting distance of each other, and yet we separate them all in our minds. And so it'll be lovely to see quite how much is brought together in that. I don't know what you think, Alison, but I was absolutely astounded when we went onto the spreadsheets, for want of a better word, of the Wiltshire Museum to look at the list of burials, to find that you could then click on this link to find more details on that burial, and the amount of information within that. I mean, hundreds upon hundreds of burials, and you think, well, where's all that curated? Where are all those boxes and artifacts that aren't on display in the museum? You must have a take on that, Alison.
Yeah. I mean, the answer is that they're in various museums. So the one at Avery is very important, but they also have finds elsewhere. They could be in Salisbury, they could be in Devizes, some are in the British Museum. But I think the wonderful thing about this initiative is that it's democratizing archaeology.
Yeah.
It's really, putting it out there for people. And it's a big and complex story to be told. And hats off to people like Josh Pollard, who've been trying to add to our body of knowledge. But I see that B. Griffin 317 makes a very good point. If you encourage more people there, that's not necessarily a good thing. And that's a problem that faces all UNESCO sites. And site management is a really big issue. However, archaeologically, it's wonderful that this stuff is being put out there for people, because after all, the public have paid for rather a lot of this work.
Yes, indeed. I mean, a lot of people, that are with us tonight will not have been to Avery or had the chance to go to Avery. It's hard to get across in words the scale of the place. Even if you've been there several times, I find going back there, every time you go, what?
Yeah,
This is
so
insane.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
So big they put a medieval village inside it.
Yes.
Indeed.
But
Indeed.
it's the
Who
depth
knows what was
and
there
the height
before?
of the back. Yeah, it's the sheer scale of the construction and the depth of the banks and things. Anyway, that's the thing. So we've got that to look forward to. Obviously, we've got a lot to get through tonight. Big thanks to Eponas. Thank you so much for your making the contribution.
Yes.
That's the other way I forgot, actually. That's the super chats. If people
Super chats as well.
throwing money at us.
So many ways you can throw money
that's
at us.
right.
As well.
Because Jeff, was it? No, who was it? Jimmy said that the thanks button wasn't there, but it probably isn't while the super chat's on, while the chat's live. Don't know. Anyway, we don't want to go off into those weeds. Let's move on from Avery, and forgive me, I'm sort of not clock watching, and I am at the same time, if you see what I mean. So we've got to
if we
moderate
don't clock watch to a degree, we'll be here until next Tuesday, won't we?
Yeah. So,
until Allison says she's bored and she wants to go,
which you're perfectly at liberty to do, because it might get
Never.
Yeah. Right. Look, this is one that you brought attention to, and I'm going to put it on the screen there. The headline, police seized hundreds of Paleolithic tools, Roman tiles, bones, and other ancient artifacts from 2 homes in Spain. Spanish authorities have seized hundreds of ancient skeletal remains and archaeological artifacts from the homes of 2 men in the province of Alicante. Among the confiscated relics are the Paleolithic flint tools, Ammonite and Nautilus fossils, Neolithic and Bronze Age mills, Phoenician amphorae, Roman mosaic tiles, and a human skull. Now, Rupert, do I need to sort of read any more before you...
No, I don't think so. It's just... It is fair to say that the laws in Spain are special. In as much as the government will just do things that some of us might think are utterly outrageous, because they can. The thing that bothered me about this was that these guys, basically this collection was inherited.
Yeah. I'm just going to put it up on the screen, Rupert, so people can read the text at their leisure here while we...
okay.
Yeah, so carry on.
Yes, it's a shame we can't get rid of ads, really, isn't it? But,
yes, it is.
But the point is that for anybody who does any significant collecting, I have a significant collection of things that many of which if they're fossils, I've been going out from a paleontological point of view, I've been going out on digs for decades, literally decades, and I have got an awful lot of fossils that I've dug up over the years when I've been out on digs with the Natural History Museum and stuff like that. I've got artifacts from around the world, and the two that bothered me most, and I think it's why I was so bothered by this piece, is that I have 2 axes, which I have shown to some of you before. One is an obsidian axe head from the Tirana civilization in Colombia. Another is a conquistador's axe. So, one of the blades that these handfuls of men who went over and killed so many people in South America. Now, I was given both of those axe heads by the Coggi themselves. There is no provenance. They handed them to me because they trusted me, and they said that we think you might like these. And they're actually 2 of my most prized possessions because, not least of all, the conquistador's axe head that's a piece of history that we can all understand and relate to. Now, because I have no provenance, and because in conversations I had 20 years ago with archaeologists who were doing work in Colombia, that they were absolutely horrified that I had these, because as far as they were concerned, it was desecration of an archaeological site. Now, I said, well, they were given to me by the Kogi who live there. It's their land. If you want to get yourself shot, the fastest way to get yourself shot in Colombia is to go and dig holes, if you're a treasure hunter, because there's still so much gold stuff to be dug up there. You go and dig a hole in Colombia, you'll get shot in no time at all. But it was the fact that these archaeologists genuinely disapproved of me having these artifacts that had been given to me by the people who own the land. So as far as I'm concerned, they have no right to be disgruntled by me owning these things. And from that point of view, so could the authorities come into my house and say, well, we'll take those? On what basis? As I said, the two guys in Spain inherited that collection, and I don't see how anybody can say that, for example, a Nautilus fossil was misappropriated. I find the whole situation quite questionable. What do you think, Alison?
Go on, Alison. I know you have a skin in the game.
I'm sorry, but the museum curator in me drives what I have to say. So there is always this tension between private individual collections and collections that are available for everybody. And the thing is that archaeology should belong to or be accessible to everybody. I personally think that the Spanish authorities were right. Many nations, including our own, have got strong antiquities legislation. In Scotland, the law is different from England. So in Scotland, anything whose original owner or rightful heir can't be identified is the property of the Crown. No two ways about it. And the Crown can claim it. And this law has been used for a long time in order to make sure that the material culture heritage of Scotland is available for the people of Scotland and everybody else, i.e. that it's housed in a museum, not in private hands. So I hear what you say, Rupert. It's a complicated thing, but as a matter of principle, isn't it always better to allow as many people as possible to understand their archaeology?
Yes.
And also, these things are a little bit like bits of jigsaw. So it may well be that among that collection of stuff in Spain is something that would actually change the history of a particular period in Spain's past, but that the owners of that would be unaware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's always kept away from archaeologists, then it's denying them the possibility to maximize the information value of those things.
I agree with that in principle, but I think that there should always be a situation where if you have a collection, take as an example, the very fact that what percentage of any museum's curated items are ever actually available for the public? Tiny percentage.
Wrong. A tiny percentage may be on display, but any museum worth its salt will make the collections accessible. So you make an appointment, you go and see the stuff that's in the store.
Yes. Now I'm going to be cautious here on the basis of, because we could bat this backwards and forwards for hours, which we're obviously not going to do. It's for me, it's the fact, particularly when you're talking about fossils, because I won't argue with you from a principal point of view. I won't argue with you about archaeological artifacts. But when it comes to particularly paleontology, when there are fossils, for example, that you can go along the south coast of Britain and you can pick up fossils. Well, they're there in their billions. To say that there's any importance individually in any of these items, it's not a thing. And so I think that from the point of view of this collection in Spain, that the decent thing would have been if the authorities actually said that we have the right to look at this and see if there's anything that should be curated and made available to the public, not just an open confiscation of hundreds and hundreds of artifacts that many of them will have no bearing apart from anything else. The fact that there is no provenance to them either. If somebody has just even bought something, I've got a couple of bits that I bought from a shop in Egypt that it was just on a sniff that I thought, no, that's old. But they were legally for sale without provenance. And it's like, well, what benefit is that to a museum if there's no provenance? It's that kind of thing. I think it's a very grey area. And for me, the wholesale confiscation of the whole damn lot is just excessive.
It's I really, I thought,
agree with me.
no, but I thought it's really great to have the two sides, aired right now. I thought this would be, because I know you'd take a strong stance, having been, curated a museum yourself. You know exactly what goes on, Alison, and what the issues are from an archaeologist's point of view and from a museum curator's point of view as well. I think some people in the chat have disputed the idea that museums have the artifacts are available, but I'm pretty sure you're right, Alison. That's it's the purpose of museums.
Yes,
to make stuff
but
available.
There are museums and museums.
Yeah.
So there are nationally funded ones, there are regionally funded ones, there are private ones.
Yeah.
And voluntary ones. So each museum might have its own policy, but certainly, I come from a National Museum background, and the whole push there is to make the collections available in as many different ways as possible. And this includes taking good quality photos and in some cases 3D models and making them available, which is a great way to democratize the collections. And as far as paleontological stuff is concerned, you'd really need to have this debate with paleontologists, because as with archaeology, if every single fossil had just been collected privately and had stayed in private hands, there would be no such thing as paleontology or archaeology as we know them now. Because you have to have collections which are available for study by people who are knowledgeable and who are able to contextualize and enhance the information about those objects.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And
absolutely. Well, look, the next article is going to present, it's going to put this all in reverse.
What, the flip side of that, yes.
The flip side. So I suggest we move on. In the meantime, deep thanks to Nick and C. Reader, who've thrown money at us, Rupert.
Thank you so much, peoples. You're very kind. And, yes, you'll find out more later on. You'll find out more about where it's going as well.
Oh yes, indeed. Yes, it was this one. There we go. Looted ancient sarcophagus returned to Egypt from US. Now, an ancient wooden sarcophagus that was featured at the Houston Museum of Natural Sciences was returned to Egypt after US authorities determined it was looted years ago. Egyptian officials said Monday. The repatriation is part of an Egyptian government efforts to stop the trafficking of stolen antiquities. In 2021, authorities in Cairo succeeded in getting 3,000 5,300 stolen artifacts returned to Egypt from across the world. So this sarcophagus, almost 3 meters tall, I'm thinking, how do you smuggle that in the first place?
Yes.
But, obviously it is clear in this case that this is a stolen, smuggled item. Now, the trouble is here, of course, this case is clear-cut. It's not where it belongs. But then we're getting into the grey area of going back in time of what does belong, where and in whose museum.
I have to say that there are two sides to this. Well, in fact, 3 sides of this. The first one is the fact that this was a looted sarcophagus, as you say, 3 meters in length. I mean, it's a massive thing. And it was looted. It was stolen. It was smuggled to America. Now, there is a part of me that goes, however wrong that is, I think, 10 out of 10 for effort. It's a staggering thing to have done. But equally, yes, clearly, it's a disgrace that this has happened. But then you get into this really grey, muddy area where, it's been in the news over here this week that that there's arguments going on again about whether the Elgin marbles should be returned to Greece. And of course, Britain and the British Museum are saying, well, no, of course they shouldn't. The thing is that once you open that Pandora's box, the trouble is that as soon as you go back into seriously old collections in museums, say a couple of 100 years old, or 100 to a couple of 100 years old, well, then you could argue that all of that stuff was looted. And so once you start sending this back or that back, well, what, are you going to send the whole lot back and empty the museum? Over to you, Allison.
Oh, it's so tricky. But presumably, let us hope that nobody in the wonderful family of people who are involved here would say that looting now is a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
It's not.
Yeah.
And I don't know the full history of the Smithsonian thing, but it sounds as though a firm case was made for this having been relatively recently looted and illegally acquired by the museum, and therefore that is a cut and dried case. You are absolutely right that there's murky pasts in just about every museum's history, and how you go about righting those wrongs is a very complicated area.
And politics.
But it has to be said also that illegal antiquity smuggling is up there in terms of finance, global finance, with drug dealing. So let's not kid ourselves that this is a small and unimportant thing. It's a very important and a very damaging thing.
Yeah. Well said indeed.
It is an interesting one. I mean, although it's unrelated to this particular article, but what's your take on the Elgin marbles and whether they should go back to Greece, or are you not going to say anything publicly?
Fair enough. No,
I can't say anything publicly at all. But when you are saying that the BM doesn't want to return them, I think it would be worth you having a close look at what the BM are actually saying, because they're talking about lending them on perhaps a long-term basis.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can see the argument about ownership, though, can't you? And I think that's probably the issue for Greece. We should get Jennifer back on. I mean, Jennifer Wexler of the British Museum.
Yeah. Well, mind you, her lips will probably be...
Probably, but we can always ask, can't we?
But actually, I have a good news story. I was in Peru a few years ago, and we went to the Nazca Lines, and in that area, the people who kind of take you around the archaeological sites are the same people who used to loot those sites because they were poor farmers and they could get more money by selling antiquities that they flogged.
Flog it?
But now they flogged, yeah. But now, thanks to various initiatives, they are able to make a very good living by taking tourists around, and they take a pride in their own archaeology, and they protect the archaeology now. And I think that's a good news story.
Well, that's wonderful. That kind of turnaround. It takes a lot of imagination on somebody's part, to make those kinds of things happen. I suggest we move on to some prehistoric archaeology, shall we? We're going to... Where are we going?
Sure, I don't know what you're implying.
We're going to... we're going to Slovakia, are we not?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
There we are. Researchers.
I'm going to tell you, folks, that we have this list, and I have no idea in which order Michael is going to chuck them at you. So, so if I sound surprised, it's not because I don't know about them. It's just because I don't know what's coming up next.
Well, here's a clue. They're coming up in the order in which you put them in your email to me. Pretty much.
Did I? Yeah. Did I? Okay.
Well, they were in an order, and you sent me an email. So anyway, I'm sure you'll find ways of coping. It'll be fine. Researchers offer new interpretation of a 4,000-year-old cemetery. So, is this a case of technology being applied to something retrospectively? I think it is a bit, but it's not new technology. I think it's C14. It says fundamental... Go on. Sorry, fundamental technological changes often also cause profound social shifts. This is not only evident in the current case of digitization, but also in the case of industrialization in the 19th century, or the introduction of bronze as a work material about 4,000 years ago. Understanding such transitional periods in the past can therefore also help to better classify current processes. So 2 archaeologists from the, sorry, I'm going ahead of folk, Roots Cluster of Excellence at Kiel University. I'll tell you what, I want to know what they're doing at the Roots Cluster of Excellence at Kiel University.
Actually, can we ask Allison? Do you know what the Roots stands for? Because we couldn't find a.
Is it an acronym or is it just a?
I wish I knew, but I can tell you about Kiel University. The professor there is the wonderful Professor Johannes Müller, and he has developed that department there, and it's doing fantastic work on the Neolithic, the Chalcolithic, and the Bronze Age, mostly in Northern Europe, but also now in Central Europe. And so they have a lot of money. They run these big interdisciplinary projects, and so the quality of the work that's being done is very, very good.
It sounds like it's proper joined up thinking, covering a broad area, so you're really going to extract good stories, good sequences. That's what it sounds like to me anyway. That's the
excuse me interrupting. What did you say his name was, Alison? Hans Müller?
Johannes Johannes Müller, and he actually studied in Edinburgh University many years ago. And he's a fantastic guy. Well, okay. He's a super smart cookie. I do.
Excellent. Okay, I'll note to self. I'll contact him. Great.
So
and the point that they're making is about the economic and political and social importance of a switch to using bronze. Because once you do that, having moved from just using copper, it means that you need to have a supply system because, as you know, bronze is an alloy of copper and tin. And one of the major sources of tin is in Cornwall in southwest England. Yeah. And around 2,200 years ago, which is 200 years before that cemetery at Nitra, in Britain, when they discovered tin, they went over to using bronze pretty much instantly. And it's at this time that you see a whole load of very rich graves. So those people, who were able to control the flow of metal, around Britain or into the continental Europe, could get rich quick. And in fact, going back to Stonehenge, the rich graves like Bush Barrow, those people were rich probably because they were able to monopolize the flow of tin from Cornwall down into continental Europe, including places like Nitra in Slovakia. So basically, our archaeology is this fantastically interlinked set of stories.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much for that,
Yeah,
Alison.
that's
clarified. Because this article here, particularly deals with the cemetery at Nitra. Is that correct, Rupert?
Yeah. I mean, the most significant thing about this study is that because historically there was they were struggling to find datable material, and it has always been presumed, because it's a big cemetery. There's like 300 tombs there, and it had always been presumed that that this was in use over a long period of time and had built up over a long period of time, and that the differences in the grave goods were because of a change of, I hesitate to use the word fashion, but cultural changes, social changes over time. And what's happened as a result of this study is that they've actually dated the cemetery more generally and found that actually it was only in use for 2 or 3 generations. So this cemetery of 300 burials was built up really in a very short space of time, which means that the social differences between the burials are more to do with probably social status or that sort of thing, or certainly different, people from different social areas of society, than anything to do with changes over time. So it's the conceptual shift that is so important here.
And put another way, I get that previously they didn't have C14 dating on a lot of the stuff. But so previously they had been dating by typology, and of course, if you've got a culture shift in the middle of that, the instinct is to stretch it over time. But now the C14 has been done on a relatively few samples, it seems, but nevertheless, the conclusion is that this shift has taken place relatively swiftly. Which, I think happens more often than not. Than we
What
think.
in particular?
Well, I'm thinking long barrows. We tend to think of them sort of smeared over the Neolithic. If Hazelton North is anything to go by, it's a couple of hundred years. Top.
That's right. Yeah. And also the use of Bayesian modeling of radiocarbon dates has been a bit of a game changer, because if you have a series of dates, rather than look at them as individual dates, you can model them and get a tighter sense of the time range represented. And this has been applied to lots of different kinds of monuments and all sorts of other things as well. So again, it's one of these very useful tools that is helping us to produce more nuanced and probably more accurate stories of the past.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I think that who was it? Who was the archaeologist, paleontologist, was it, that coined the phrase punctuated equilibrium?
I don't remember.
It's applied to evolution.
Absolutely it is.
In the animal world,
but no, if you're asking me who coined that phrase, I don't remember that.
It should be on the tip of my tongue. It's one of my favourite books called Wonderful Life. What was his name?
Can we phone a friend?
I bet somebody in the chat will tell me.
Yes, probably. Probably. Come on, folks. Actually, there was a comment that that I was going to pick up on, but I actually think that Allison, it'd be better thrown to you. Graham said, I know we're centuries apart, but could the UK tin/copper traders have used the same routes as the earlier Stone Axe merchants?
Very good question, and I think the answer is no. And again, it's a kind of complicated. I can give you the 3 minutes or the 40-minute lecture on it. But I mean, I suppose the take-home story is that both with stone axe heads and with tin, and indeed gold, you get these incredible stories of very long distance movements in some cases. So with axe heads, you get jadeite from the North Italian Alps that gets as far as County Mayo in Ireland or the north of Scotland. And in the case of tin and gold, from Cornwall, that tin and gold has been found on the Nebre disc, which is in olden eastern Germany, what used to be East Germany, near Halle, and that dates to about 1550 BC. So, in a nutshell, the routes, the trading routes, are fairly well understood, and they will have followed the kind of political ins and outs of the days. Yeah. So, for example, we know that there was a close link between Wessex and Brittany. And then the Rhine has always been a very important corridor up and down which things have been moving.
Green Dragon reprised. I knew there'd be somebody. It was Stephen J. Gould.
Stephen J. Gould. All hail. Yes.
All hail. Yeah. Thank you, Green Dragon.
Well done, Alison. That was a good 3 minutes. Can we give anybody a reference to where you might have a 40-minute version of that?
Actually, yes. I've just been invited to go to give that lecture in Halle in October this year. So go to Halle.
Fantastic. Can we come?
Yeah. It's a fantastic museum. It's a wonderful museum.
We've got to go. We've got to go.
It's been something that we've talked about before. That's really interesting. So when have you got actual details of that? Because we'll post that up for people.
Yeah.
Details of
I need to go to my other computer to get them for you.
Well, give it to me. It doesn't have to be today. Give it to me another time,
okay,
and we'll put them up. That's great.
Christmas was also quick on the Stephen J. Gould as well. Thank you, Christmas.
Yeah. You're clever peoples.
Yeah.
Yes. And before Caledonia is right, jadeite, one fragment, and it was broken and burnt. And it probably dates to probably was buried around 3,800, but the axe head was probably made about 4,300. So it was old when it was buried at Cairn Holy.
Yep. Great site, Cairn Holy. That's Martin, by the way. Martin, before Caledonia, Allison, he's prolific in his filmmaking, going from site to site. And
yes, do you know? And we're actually in awe of how much he gets about. Martin is. I can't remember where you live in Scotland, Martin, but he put up a film about sites in Cornwall the other day. I was thinking, how much time do you spend on the road, man? He does some good stuff. He's got a very good library or portfolio of films on his YouTube channel. Which is before Caledonia, of course. Actually, before we move on, an interesting thing, Alison, you talking about the tin from Cornwall, something that I was very excited about a couple of years ago, and I've kept it on a back burner of something that we should do something about at a later date, is the fact that in off the coast of Greece and Israel, with various shipwrecks, that they actually found tin ingots that came from Cornwall, and the fact that they found ingots, I think, is far more exciting than finding actually made artifacts. The fact that they have taken an ore that is going to be used to be it's going to craftsmen somewhere else over that distance. That's very exciting, isn't it?
It was awesome. Ha ha ha.
Right, thank you. It was very nice being with you tonight, Alison.
Actually, closer to home, there's a shipwreck off Salcombe in Devon that's also got tin ingots in it.
Oh, crikey.
Is there?
Yes, there is. Yes, and it's been
What's the
published.
date on that shipwreck? Do we know?
It's about 1400 BC, so it's early Middle Bronze Age.
Off Salcombe.
Yeah.
Not far from your.
No, it's not. I'm thinking,
far
is
from your
that
caravan.
I wonder if that's diveable.
No, you
I think
can't
it's
go
been
and steal
dived.
tin
It's been
ingots,
done.
Rupert.
Oh,
No, you
I'm
cannot.
sure it has. I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if... no, I'm not talking about looting, for God's sake, man.
No.
I'm talking
But the other
about
thing
visiting.
is that, but tin is such an interesting topic. And as it happens, there's a really interesting research project that's run by Ben Roberts and Alan, whose name I can't remember. And it's trying to trace the use of Cornish tin in prehistory. So watch that space.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Okay,
Brilliant.
thank you.
Oh, it's such useful stuff.
Can I just say before we move on?
Yes.
Somebody, and I've lost you in the chat. Who was it? Was it Eponus? Yeah, it was. Eponus said, I never found any further information on the date of the petrified wood found in the movie. We have actually, we have covered this in a few items, and I'm beginning to think, because I get emails about this all the time, and we should probably make a little film about it just so that it's up there. The most important thing about it, it's not a fossil tree trunk. It's actually it's far more rare than that. It's a mineral called blue schist, and blue schist only forms in the subduction zones of the tectonic plates, which is why it can come up. So if you can imagine the plates, rolling, one under another, that's why the mineral comes up in cylinders. It's rolled up through the plates. And so that's why you get this impression of it being a fully formed tree trunk. And the reason that it screamed at us was because all the literature that you could read about Brinckethly before we visited it, literally every single book you could find described it as a carefully worked piece of stone, and you could look at it and see straight away that that's not worked. There's no man alive that could have carved that, and it does look like any number of fossil tree trunks that I've seen before. Anyway, the point is that regardless of the fact that so it's a mineral, it's not a fossil tree trunk. The point is that it still looked like a tree trunk. The people who built that tomb would still have perceived it to be a magical stone tree. It doesn't matter whether it was or not. That's what it looks like. And so that, to me, explains its presence in the tomb. But yeah, we should probably do a piece about that. Put it up.
No, it's not like the blue stones from Stonehenge at all. It's a different kettle of fish. In fact, this we're talking about, blue schist, is very, very rare indeed, and that's why Anglesey is very special in this matter, because one of the very, very few outcrops of blue schist is but a few miles from Brinckethly. So quite a few other sites use blue schist on the island of Anglesey, but there's nothing quite like the thing that looks like a tree trunk. Actually, Rupert, I did make a little film. When I was there in summer on Anglesey, I went to Brinckethly and I made a little film. And I sat in the chamber and explained this thing to folk.
Did you title it? Did you title it "The Prehistory Guys Debunked"? Maybe that's the thing.
I'll go back. I'll retitle it. Yeah, I'll do that. That'll get it seen. Brilliant. Full of bright ideas. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
So this one is actually something that's done the rounds quite a bit, I think, in the media, and this is, of course, just one published article of many covering this, because people always get excited when, and I think sometimes this has been framed as amateur archaeologists discover the earliest form of writing at its most extreme reporting. That's not what this is, nor would the researchers at the root of it claim it to be that. Do you want to take this and explain it further, Rupert? Or shall I? Would I be better reading from the article?
I probably. I think it's worth saying because, in fairness, here we've used the article that was put up from or via the researchers, so the team who've done this. It doesn't actually mention the chap Ben Bacon, who is an amateur archaeologist. That doesn't make him wrong. He's the one who spotted it first. He took it to I think it's Durham University, isn't it? Where they agreed with him that he was something, and so they encouraged him to take it a little bit further. And then together, there's Durham University, and there's another guy on the team who's from a different university. I don't remember where it is off the top of my head. But anyway, so it was Ben Bacon, the amateur, who actually spotted it in the first place. The research overall is really very, very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. But what can you encapsulate what it is that it's saying, Rupert?
Why don't you read the bit that because they've basically spotted seasonal markings, put it that way. So they've actually in the cave art, there is clear reference to seasonal migrations and seasonal changes.
Let me just have a go there. So I'll show you the images first, so that it's clear in your minds the kinds of things that we're talking about. And I've never had these pointed out before, seen them pointed out, or even had them discussed as the mystery that they are. But these little accompanying dots and lines of dots and smears and lines that accompany some of these wonderful cave paintings. So a small team of researchers, some independent, I think some affiliated with University College and the University of Durham, all in the UK, have deciphered cave markings made by Ice Age hunters tens of thousands of years ago. In their paper published in the Cambridge Archaeological Journal, the group suggests the markings are evidence of the first use of a lunar calendar. Scientists and lay people alike have long known of the cave paintings made by people in the distant past all across Europe and the UK. Prior research has shown that they were made by Ice Age hunter-gatherers that lived mostly on the meat from animals of their time. Those animals were often depicted on the walls of caves in which the people of the time were living. But one aspect of the cave drawings has remained a mystery. Certain dots and dashes placed near the animals. In this new effort, the researchers claim to have at long last deciphered the marks. Researchers found that the marks coincided with what had been seasonal behaviours of the animals, such as mating or birthing. Such information, the researchers note, would have been very important to early hunters because it helped to keep track of which animals would be most easily killed during a given time. Actually, I might as well get to the end of this. The researchers also found that the seasonal information drawn on the walls could be broken down into 13 periods, which coincided with the lunar calendar year. And this, they further suggest, is evidence of the first use of a lunar calendar. They also found that certain marks, such as Y-shaped symbols, held specific information, such as the beginning of birthing season for a given animal, while other marks noted seasonal information, such as snow. I think the actual paper, we confess, we have not read. It is long. It's very, very detailed. And not only have they gone into a lot of a lot of detail about how they came to their hypothesis, but also quite a lot of detail about how they tested their hypothesis, which is sort of very encouraging. Although there has been some pushback, we understand that their conclusions, that their hypothesis stands. They've been accused, I think, of cherry-picking certain information along the line. I don't know. But I think what will talk a little bit about it here because there are other aspects it brings up. But I think it would be a challenge to do a deeper dive for a program further down the line. Do you think, Rupert, that we could do on this? Because it is a fascinating topic.
Pick out here that James has commented. Those of you that don't know, it's our friend James Dilley, who I mentioned at the beginning of the show. We'll flag up his website as well. Ancient Crafts UK is James's stuff. He's an extraordinary fellow. James says, worth noting the idea of dots being connected to lunar calendars, seasonal episodes, etc., has been suggested before. It's certainly not new. So I'm not sure what in this instance. Maybe it's the clarity of correlation that they've been able to make. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. We must do a deeper dive and see if there's anything concrete that we can put into a film. Do you have a take on it, Alison?
Yeah, I mean, James put his finger on the main point that actually people have been studying cave art for the best part of 100 years. And so it's not the first time that anyone has suggested this. I think it's a very interesting hypothesis. And I'm glad that it's a long article because it's the sort of thing that needs to be argued out very carefully. And I'm quite sure that people will continue to debate this for decades to come. For those people who are talking about the Pleiades and various other star arrangements, it's interesting, but what would be the implication for that? What is the relationship between showing a star formation superimposed on an animal?
Do you know what? It's one of those areas where you just don't want to be. Well, no, it's because you don't want to be misquoted.
I know.
Because I can, for example, I don't have any problem overall with the concept of people marking a season with the rising of a really recognizable constellation. So say the Pleiades as a star cluster. What I don't want to happen is that me saying something like that puts me in the same bucket as Graham Hancock, for example. I make no claims on any of this. I just say, I can see how that might be a thing. I go no further than that, don't misinterpret me or misquote me.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that the value in this kind of thing, applied to this kind of thing, if it's compelling enough, it can bring us closer. Which speculation about the Pleiades or whatever doesn't necessarily do so, because where's it going to get you, and how you how are you going to
but also it's worth contextualizing this research within the broader archaeology of the Paleolithic and in some cases the very early Mesolithic, the kind of people who were making this. So what else do we know about these people and their lifestyles?
I'm going to go off on one. I'm going to this is a wild one. I know we're talking about thousands of years apart, but I was encouraged by you mentioning at least the early Mesolithic there. And one of the key things that they do say in the paper, that they're conscious that their scheme can't make any sense unless the people doing it have got a fixed point in the calendar that they can rely upon, that their markings can be in relation to, i.e. they've got to have some kind of external timekeeping going on. And I'll just say, Warren Field.
No. Okay, read my article about archaeology of astronomy.
Yeah.
And actually, Warren Field was a lovely idea. Doesn't work.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Okay.
In case anybody doesn't know, I mean, we didn't know, did we? It was Vince, wasn't it? Turned us on to Warrenfield, Vince Gaffney. Mesolithic pits in a row up in Scotland that sort of relate to the horizon, and it was reckoned that it was a lunar calendar. There being the 12 posts, 12 pits, 12... Something like that. Something like that. Okay.
I don't think it was
well,
12,
there's something else we need to unravel then, Alison. Okay.
Yeah.
I will send you my article.
Please do. Yeah, please do. And I will read it. I want to pick up Martin said, so before Caledonia, folks, Martin said, the bull probably represents the constellation of Taurus. Right. Now, the thing here, as soon as you say something like that, one of the things that is very, very, well, it's not even difficult, it's impossible to actually pin down, is the origins of the constellations themselves is broadly lost in the mists of time. There's a few that you can pin down to the Romans and stuff, but nobody could say that that people would have looked at that random grouping of stars in the sky would represent a bull to the same people 6,000 years ago or however long ago. It's a huge leap, and it's one that I have tried and failed to pursue because it's interesting in relation to other research that we do in the background. And the thing is that you do get cultural similarities where, and particularly with Orion, and Orion is the most compelling of all the constellations from that point of view. You do get correlations in different cultures where the constellation of Orion is called something that relates to hunting. He's either the hunter or he's the deer. I say he's the deer, or it's the deer, or I can't remember all the different details. But the point is that it does seem to have a cultural similarity in all sorts of places around the world. But you cannot take any of those random groupings of stars in the sky and find a commonality around the world. It's just, on what basis? Look out in the sky and whilst. I mean, look at Orion. Why isn't it a butterfly then? Why is it a hunter? Well, it's nonsense. It is a cultural thing that's been accepted, but we don't know where it starts. We have, and Allison is just going to show us. What have you done, woman?
Yeah.
Oh,
Clive
Clive
Ruggles.
Yeah,
of course,
we should have known better, really.
He, it's quite an old book now, Astronomy in Prehistoric Britain and Ireland. And he looked at the ethnoastronomy. So he looked at how contemporary and recent groups around the world mythologize or make sense of celestial phenomena.
Yeah.
And he then tried to apply the findings of that to prehistory. And I think he did that in a sensible way.
Yeah, we did a thing about archaeoastronomy, didn't we? Very, very early on, and we got so lost
we
in
did.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm all for opinion, but I like a bit more evidence in my sandwich. And
I thought we were going to go to Thornborough Henges then for a moment.
We could do.
No.
Hang on, I'm just typing note to self because I'll buy that book because I should have read it by now and I haven't.
Yeah, all cool.
Excuse the back of my head, folks.
Anyway, I hope we've done the job there of at least drawing attention to that. And the paper is available freely and openly, which isn't always the case. But this one is, so that's good. I think, Rupert, probably it's time now to just say a few words about what we want to do with our filmmaking over the coming years.
What we want to do with your money.
Not my money, your money.
Yes.
That's the thing, yeah. For a long time, people have asked us where is Standing with Stones 2. I hope most of you will be familiar with the film that kicked it off, Standing with Stones, and so there has been forever this question of what we were going to do. And last year we were sort of almost sort of going to launch that, but we thought we're not going to be. The last time when we made Standing with Stones the first time, our time was our own, and it was clear. It is not now, so we can't embark on that kind of an epic. But we still want to do something. We still want to do, make a mark with something, with telling this a story. And long story short, we've come up with the idea of doing a 5-part, more sort of vlog, sort of travelogue sort of thing, and we're calling it, and you'll get where we're coming from. The title, we're calling it Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. Now, somebody pointed out to us on Patreon the other night, well, you can't do that because there isn't a megalithic continuity between Göbekli Tepe and Stonehenge. It's not quite our point. We want to tell the story of the Neolithic and what we think of in terms that led to the outburst of the megalithic cultures in northwest Europe and France and Britain. And in order to tell this whole story, we need to include these wonderful places that so many people are enthralled by in Turkey and in Mesopotamia as was, and the Fertile Crescent. We can't tell the story of the Neolithic without going back to the beginnings of farming. So what we want to do is make a series called Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge, 5 parts or something like that anyway. And we'll make them hopefully over the next few years, starting with this year. Now, the bits of the jigsaw puzzle. Yes, go.
Can I just say, oh, well, thank you so much.
Oh, my, thank you. Wow.
That's very, very kind. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I thought it was funny that you started this little piece by saying that we couldn't embark on another mission like Standing with Stones, except that we are. We've just broken it down into 5 pieces. It's worse.
I guess
it's far worse.
Well, not so much. Not in terms of the back end creation of a film. I attempted. At the time, we're talking 14 years ago now, to do the best we could in terms of technical quality. This is slightly different. It's going to be much more informal, in terms of being a travelogue. The aim is to take you with us, so it'll be me and Rupert, not just Rupert talking to camera. We'll be going to the places, having adventures there, and you'll be with us. That's the point. So for you, the viewer, it's a travelogue all across Europe from Turkey to Wiltshire. So all the soldiers are not in a row yet. In the next few weeks, our Buy Me a Coffee campaign page will reflect what I've just said. Probably, hopefully, better said than what I just said. But everything's what I'm going to play. I've got the first few moments, first minute of the promo video for promoting it. So, do you mind if I run that now? You can say no, yes, but all right. 3, 2, 1. Here. Yeah,
we would like you to help us to take you on an extraordinary journey.
We're asking you to help us answer the question of not only how did this amazing monument down here in the south of France come to be. This is the Domaine des Fades near Cyril. But what led to the construction of thousands and thousands of megalithic monuments throughout northwestern Europe, and ultimately, at the end of the Neolithic period, Stonehenge, about 1,000 miles that way, on the Salisbury Plain?
The answer isn't here nor on Salisbury Plain, and in order to even begin to tell the story of the Neolithic, we need to be somewhere else, and at another time, thousands of years even before this ancient monument was built. And for that, we need to head east.
There you are. That's all I've got for you so far. So that will be the beginning of the little promo film to help raise money, which will be exclusively, I think, on our Buy Me a Coffee page. So watch out for announcements.
Glorious! I should tell you, I so needed to get a haircut done before we did that piece of film, and I just couldn't. And I'm sorry, I look like a tramp. What can you say?
Yeah. So there are other bits. You know, it extends, and we end up at the on the shores of the Mediterranean, not being able to go any further. Sort of, it's only you can take us across the sea to Turkey. That kind of thing. Anybody up for a blooper reel for part of the filming we did a few weeks ago? Anybody up for that? Oh well, here we go.
We need your support to start raising the funds necessary to start filming for this series. Starting with the first episode? Starting now with the first episode? Yeah?
There's the funds necessary for us to begin filming this series, starting now with the first episode.
Yeah. We need your support to start raising the funds necessary to start filming.
You said start twice.
We need your support to raise the...
Sorry.
Hold on. We need your support to raise the funds necessary to start filming this series, starting now with the...
start twice.
I didn't.
You did.
Not really, when you think about it.
How wide is it? Do you want to wipe your
Very
nose?
wide.
You look like you're slightly moist.
We need your support to start raising the funds necessary to begin. That's right, you're right. Okay. We need your support to start We need your support to begin raising the funds necessary to begin. I was going to... It's your film.
Bad man. Okay, bloody strimmer as well.
Yeah. We need your support to begin raising the funds necessary for filming this series, starting right now with the first episode.
I shouldn't find it so funny, but I do.
Look, I'm afraid we're rumbled, though, Rupert.
What?
B. Griffin, who, I mean, I have to say, not forgetting that he's just made a big contribution here. It says, I feel like this film project is an excuse for a subsidised trip to Istanbul.
Yeah, well, you're not wholly wrong. Yeah.
No. We will deliver. You know, it's the thing for us that we're passionate about, you know, creating this story, bringing this story to you. Anyway,
I mean, the thing that is an absolute joy, actually, I mean, you know, joking aside, is that over the years, I mean, we have been so lucky that we've had the support of people, you know, like Allison. I mean, the very fact that we have someone like Allison who is actually on board with what we do and approves of what we do, it makes an enormous difference to our work. And the fact that we've got, you know, I mean, people like Lee Clare in Turkey,
Istanbul,
who open invitation there that, as soon as we get over there, he'll take us around Göbekli Tepe, and it's the fact that we've got contacts, not least of all again because Allison knows everybody all over the world. So we've got all manner of contacts along the route, and that makes a huge difference to what you can do when you're on the ground. So we're very excited about making this series. It's going to be a belter. And we will be singing the Game of Thrones theme tune when we go to the Iron Gates. It's going to happen.
It is going to happen. Oh dear. Shall we move on to something actually? Here we go. And it is the mass production of stone bladelets shows cultural shift in Paleolithic Levant.
Yeah.
So analysis.
I just want to say before you dive in there, that James, this is what we were talking about earlier on. If ever there is an expert in lithics, it's James. So it'd be interesting to know your take on this. Go on, carry on, Mike.
What was analysis of stone tools attributed to the Armenian, the first Upper Paleolithic culture of the Near East, 40,000 to 45,000 years ago, shows that small, elongated, symmetrical objects were mass-produced on site, bladelets, that is. Such a standardized production is in line with what archaeologists have already suggested, being linked to the bow and arrow introduction. My goodness. Okay. So do I need to read much more of this, Rupert? Or
I think the
basic
point
idea.
The point about this piece is that they are saying specifically mass production, and it's quite a claim because as soon as you talk about mass production, the implication, unless I'm very much mistaken, the implication is that you are creating quantities of this, certainly for stock, if not for distribution across, whatever area. You're talking about
just for context,
40,000 years ago.
The map of the area.
It's a significant finding. Now, I've got to be honest. When we looked at can you put the top picture on that article, that one? Yeah. Now, when we looked at those lithics, Mike and I both said, "Well, we've seen James knock those off." It's just
exactly.
You just pop. There's another one.
Boom.
If you know how you're hitting a piece of flint, then. So obviously we went deeper into the paper to see if this was ridiculous, and the point is that they are subsequently worked. Now, not in a majorly time-consuming way, but the point is that each of those flakes is then subsequently worked on both faces, and so our question was, because it's difficult to glean from the paper what they mean by mass production. What sort of quantities are we actually talking about here?
Yeah.
And I have got the source paper, which I'm not going to lie, I have not had time to read properly from beginning to end. So I've scanned it, and I can't find reference to quantities, the numbers of blades that they're talking about. When you're talking about fragments, flakes, then there's thousands, but that doesn't mean anything. So I don't know what. Thank you, James. James has said here, extremely skeptical. Several of these earliest evidence of bow and arrow, let's quote, that purely rely on the lithics. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a part of me that, I love it when something gets pushed back further in time for all sorts of reasons, not for anything fanciful. It's just that there are so many instances. Forgive me, if you take Göbekli Tepe as a good example, people take Göbekli Tepe as proof of the most ridiculous things. Aliens did this, or Graham Hancock. Don't need to be unkind. But the point is, people take erratic things as being proof of something completely ridiculous. And all it's saying is that, well, here's another dot on a chain. We've just got a lot more missing dots, instead of saying that it's something absolutely outlandish. So when they do find evidence that seems to push things back further into the past, I love that, because it's just more exploration that needs to be done. That's the thing, really. What were you going to say, Michael?
I was going to ask, did you read enough of the paper to discern whether they used the term mass production themselves in the paper, or is this something that's coming up in the...
The source paper says, if you'll bear with me a moment...
Oh, it looks like
Allison, do you have a
James
take
has...
on it while I'm...
Well, it looks like James has, because he's read it.
I would always bow to James on these things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I could add that,
Yes.
Again, James is right. It's a bit iffy when people are always trying to seek the earliest X, Y, and Z. And actually, this finding is interesting in its own right. And something that will link it with Göbekli Tepe is Trevor Watkins, who is a fantastic archaeologist of the Near East. He was a lecturer at Edinburgh University, and he gave this Rhine lectures to the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland several years ago, quite a long time ago now. But I think they filmed them, and he was talking about the long lead into the transition to farming in the Near East. So I'm not sure whether he would have gone 40,000 years back, but certainly he would have something interesting to say about it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and I haven't read the article myself, but if they are talking about making many more of these things than an individual group would need for its own use, then that begs the question of networks of communication between hunting and gathering communities who may well have traveled over a long distance and have been in contact with a lot of people, so that individual items might then travel long distances themselves. And so by producing a surplus, you are producing the wherewithal for oiling the social mechanisms.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. I'm presuming that these so-called, mass production. I think it's totally misleading to use that phrase, because we're so imbued with ideas of industrial goings on and stuff in our heads that when we use it in a prehistoric sense,
that's the point, isn't it?
Lost
in translation.
Lost in translation.
Yeah.
I don't mind
also,
so much the idea
Mike,
of workshops.
On,
I was going to say, go on, Allison.
But Mike, you make a very good point about a difference between what an academic article actually says and then how that's marketed and by whom. And very often you'll find that newspapers pick up the wrong end of the stick, and they just seek the most spectacular interpretation. And so they will twist what's been said. Yeah. And so
Stonehenge was built by sailors.
Yeah, whatever.
Yes, that's exactly,
the best one of all. That kind of stuff, yes. Or did Dutch hordes wipe out the people who'd built Stonehenge? It's that kind of nonsense that you get. You know? And so it makes it very difficult for archaeologists to manage the message. And you get the same problem when people are making TV programs and series, where it depends on what the producers and directors want to say. Yeah, so they can edit what an archaeologist says to say what they want to say. And the
Funny
nice
you
thing
should
about
say
your
that.
work is that
Funny you should say that. Mention that.
Hang on,
yeah.
no, you've got to finish that, Alison. What did you say? The nice
go
thing
on.
about our work, what?
because the nice thing about your work is that it's done with great honesty, and you don't try and sensationalize, and you do try to give a kind of balanced and well-informed view, and that's why I really like your work.
Bless you. Thank you. Yeah,
we do. We do keep
try.
it real all the time. We are pretty obsessional about keeping it real, because this the trouble is there is so much utter nonsense out there, whether it's aliens did this or anything in between. And the thing is that the truth, the reality, is far more exciting than any of that. And a lot of people just miss that. But yes, funny that you should. What
you were just saying, Alison.
Yeah.
Because
should we do that thing?
We've got another article to move on to, haven't we? Yeah. Well, let me just get to the top of it there. Is anybody else getting a slight clicking in your phones or anything on your speakers? It's just me then. Okay, I shouldn't worry about it. Nice picture, however. Well, the headline doesn't give it away. Winter solstice comes to Stonehenge, and so does a new debate over the ancient monument's mysterious origins.
One of the most understated titles that has ever come up. I take my hat off to that journalist.
Absolutely, to Dan Vagano and Grid. So there's a lot of preamble there. I think we'll cut to the chase, actually, having just seen that. Is that many of you will be aware that in 2021...
What happened there, Michael?
That's the age. Mike Parker Pearson and colleagues published a paper claiming that the bluestones at Stonehenge were as we know, transported from the Preselles, but had originally been formed in a circle very near at the base of the Preseli Hills at a site called Wine Morn. This was so exciting to folk that a BBC television programme was made and hosted and narrated by Alice Roberts, who we all know very well. So a big thing, to get a BBC TV full-length documentary made about a breakthrough in archaeology. Thank you so much, Amber. Bless you. Really, really kind.
Thank you, Amber.
Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, when such a breakthrough is made, it's a big thing to have a BBC documentary made about it. Now, at the time, Rupert and I did go, really? And it's complicated.
Possibly a little bit more strongly than that.
And we did two pieces, sort of pretty much debunking it, but we're outside the archaeological academic community. We're free to do so, but it's not like many people are going to take much notice. But I think our arguments were strong. However, what has happened, post all that, post the furore and post it being nailed now into the public consciousness that the bluestones at Stonehenge are a stone circle that was transported en masse from Wales, across all, from a pre-existing stone circle in Wales. But what has happened is that, two papers. Tim Darvill has published a paper which he kindly sent to us, and now it seems that Mike Parker Pearson, in the latter half of 2022, with Rob Ixer and is it Richard Bevins? I think it is, the two petrologists that work with him, have come to the conclusion that they were wrong. And, fair enough, hats off to them, done the scholarly thing of, well, I'll quote from the article. It says, in true scholarly fashion, some of the researchers behind the Wymorn Lost Circle claim, including Mike Parker Pearson, have now themselves found the chain of evidence that seems to put their own theory, which was based on the identical dimension of an empty stone socket in Wales, matching those of a blue stone, number 62 at Stonehenge, to rest. An October study in the Journal of Archaeological Science looked at 4 large blue stones still located at Wymorn, using a portable spectroscope to measure the stone's precise elemental signature. The study's authors traced their origin to an ancient quarry about 1.5 miles away called Cerrig Lladron. The trouble is that a similar portable spectroscope work sources Stonehenge's bluestone number 62 to a different quarry in Wales called Garn the Vach. So, nice. We've got a big television programme out there, and we've got a paper buried somewhere that nobody's going to read.
Yes.
A pile on top of that, of course, Tim Darville's objection is that Wymorn isn't a stone circle in the first place, and there is no evidence at Stonehenge for blue stones before Stonehenge Stage 2. So therefore, they were not in. They did not occupy the Aubrey holes, and that's a whole other debate. But we got Mike Pitts saying, "I told you so" on this side, and then Mike Pitts saying, "No, I do think there were there were blue stones in the Aubrey holes." But there you go. It gets complicated, and it speaks to this whole thing. I mean, so many things here. One is this idea of academia and archaeology being this monolithic entity that,
consensus, do you mean?
Consensus, yes. Which Graham Hancock would have you believe doesn't change their mind, is all set in their ideas, and nobody's allowed to query the status quo. Bollocks, I say.
Yes, in the words of the prophet. Yes, absolutely. In fact, it has to be said, before we move on, I do just want to say thank you very much, Tatiana and Kate. Thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
So much appreciated.
Michael and I, whilst we've been, paddling in these waters for a long time, we hadn't actually been to any of the major archaeology conferences at all. And one of the first conferences that we went to, was it Europa? It wasn't, was it? What was it? I can't remember what it was. One of the first ones.
Sunrise over the somethings. Was that Europa? Was that the title of the Europa?
The point is that
it was at Bournemouth.
That Allison was a speaker, and we had never seen Allison speak before. And Michael and I sat there in stunned disbelief while Allison told various of the some of the best known names in British archaeology, and we watched Allison stand there on the podium telling them that they were talking a load of bollocks, and we were so taken aback that this heady world was not by any stretch of the imagination a consensus of ideas. It was quite a game changer for us, and that's why we approached Allison immediately afterwards, and we have become firm friends subsequently. And
they do say that the two bitchiest professions are ballet dancing and archaeology.
Wow. Okay. Well, if you will even put yourself in the same bucket as the bitchiness of ballet dancing, then that's a staggering thing. Yeah. It's all round an astonishing situation, isn't it? Because and I'm not going to say bad things about any of the people who have done, let's be honest, staggering work in the field, whether we agree with them or not. But Michael and I did say right at the very, very beginning, that Wymorn was found because there were still 4 stones there. So how can you say that a circle was taken lock, stock, and barrel, and shifted however many miles to Stonehenge? Why did they leave those behind then? It didn't make any sense just from that point of view alone. And Tim Darville, bless him, also good friend, he sent us that paper, the paper that he's recently published. He sent that to us, I think actually before it. Well, it was the day that it was going to be published anyway. He sent it to us. And Tim doesn't even think that it was a circle in the first place. He thinks
it has to be said, Tim is so well versed in that area and the Preseli Hills. He's done so much work. It's not that Mark Parker Pearson hasn't, my goodness, but Tim has too, and I think Tim has done more general sort of work in the area. So he's not just glibly saying it's not a stone circle. He knows what he's talking about.
No, he's
exactly.
not. I mean, in fact, if I may make so bold, for me, the fundamental difference between the work of someone like Tim Darville and the work of someone like Mike Parker Pearson is that Mike gets very excited about something and shouts it very loudly to the world, and then goes to see if he's right after the event. Tim stays quiet forever until he's absolutely solid about what he's found, and if he's happy that, no, okay, I'll put this out now. There are things that Tim's doing in the background that it's like, don't tell anybody about this, because he wants to make sure that he's got it absolutely nailed before he makes it public. So you can take your pick on approaches. I'm in the Tim camp every time. But it's a shame, as Michael said, it's a great shame that you had this huge fanfare about this discovery and a very expensive BBC production fronted by Alice Roberts to get this information out there, and and it's like libel in the tabloids. That might be a retraction, but it's on page 7 in 3 lines at the bottom of the page. And
oh, goodbye, Rupert. I'm sure he'll be back.
It's the libel lawyers.
Yeah. Sorry, you were gonna chip in something.
I was going to say that the world would be a much duller place without Tim and Mike.
Oh, for goodness sakes, yeah.
Yeah. And as Taketa Hawk says, every generation gets the Stonehenge it desires or deserves.
Yeah.
And I think both of them have done fantastic work around Stonehenge, and also trying to chase this idea of the origin of the blue stones. I think that the geological work that Mike has had done is impeccable. Rob Ixer and Richard Bevins really know what they're talking about. And I think it's good of Mike to have the academic honesty to put his hands up and say, I was wrong.
And exactly what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that this all helps to move the debate along. And as long as it's done in a kind of a well-mannered, friendly dialogue type way, they can do Punch and Judy, rather. I love them both. I've known them both for 47 years.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about their personalities. But actually, their contributions have been massive.
Oh, completely massive. And also, I'll add something to that, because there's an extra added element to Mike Parker Pearson reversing his position, because he's been working up in the Preseli Hills for years and doggedly looking, and kind of, I get that the Wine Morn thing was a sort of a gift for the whole team, because they, were looking for something. I can't remember the details now, but it was one of the last places they were looking, after years and years. So there was so much excitement about this possibility around that, and it must be very deflating for them to have to do this. It said, later on in the article, it says, on balance of probability, few, if any, of the stones from Wymore ended up at Stonehenge, concedes the debate report from Parker Pearson and colleagues. It was a delicate moment to come to that conclusion, said University College London geologist Rob Ixer, one of the authors of the new reports. Oh my God! Yeah.
But
So,
that doesn't take away from the fact that they've found Craig Rossifellin, which is one of the quarries where the stones came from. They've made a pretty good argument for evidence for stones being extracted and possibly shaped there.
Yep.
So that's great. And I know that Mike is continuing his work.
Yeah.
On the question, Graham Allen raised the question about, is Tim right to talk about Stone Rose? That's a very interesting question, because actually, going back to
yes,
the dating of short Stone Rose is Middle Bronze Age, and even though Tim says often they're curvy, actually they were built to be aligned on the position of the moon rising or setting at its major standstill point. So they had to be aligned. And personally, I don't believe that Wymore was a stone alignment.
No, I tend, that's my tendency as well, despite Darville.
But there's stone rows on Dartmoor that point in all sorts of different directions.
Oh, no, but no, there's stone rows and stone rows. That's a different class. We're talking about the short stone rows, like there are many Preseli in the just below in that area. Just
Define
there.
short.
Three or four.
Three or four.
Okay.
Yeah. That kind of thing. So, which, Middle Bronze Age, did you say, or Late Bronze Age?
That's right. And I actually got a radiocarbon date for some calcined human bone from Ballymenoch in the Kilmartin Glen, which was where they had two of these short stone rows. And they were interesting because one of them wasn't quite on target for the moon at about 1300 BC. The other one was bang on target. And when you're laying out these things, you have to observe the moon's movements over its long 18.6 year cycle. Okay. So you have to watch it for at least two of these cycles in order to get a position on the horizon or wherever that you want to target with your stone row. And if you go a little bit too soon in the long sequence, you're going to get it wrong. And it looks as though that's what happened at Ballymenoch. So they built one, and then they thought, uh-oh. So they built another one and got it right. So
that's interesting.
Making mistakes is not just something that archaeologists do today. It's what people have always done around the world and throughout time.
You're slipping slightly off to the side there, Allison. We're losing half your faith there. Brilliant. Okay. Look, Martin, before Caledonia's bowled a good one, Allison, what is all your thoughts on the Hill of Many Stones?
Oh, actually, I have got thoughts of that.
I thought you might.
Because I've written up a beaker and an urn that were found at very near to the Hill of Many Stains, and we're talking about Caithness, where there's a big
anybody that doesn't know that, Caithness, what we're talking about, if anybody's familiar with how Karnak looks, think about a mini Karnak out in a field in Caithness.
Yeah.
It was the little people that made them.
Apparently.
Sure it was.
So,
now you need to be a little bit careful there.
When's the paper coming out?
And actually, Kenny Brophy did some excavations near the Hill of Many Stains.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he did. He did an entire project. And in fact, we're waiting for that to get published. So again, watch this space.
Yeah.
And it looks as though some of these stone alignments were aligned on a kist with an early beaker in. And this would be one of the earliest beakers in Britain. So it should date about 2500. And therefore, the alignment in Caithness probably dates to the early Bronze Age. So my money's on about between 1800 and 1500 BC. So we're talking about an awful lot later than the
Yeah.
earliest phase at Stonehenge.
Right,
Right.
cool. Oh my goodness! I mean, it opened so many doors in my mind that I'm sort of thinking, oh, we'll have to save that for another time, maybe. Rupert, what are you looking at? You sort of.
I was actually trying to find a photograph that I took at the Hill of Many Stains to share my screen, but but I'm struggling, and I'm not going to waste any more time on it, because for those of you, Google it, because it's bonkers.
Yeah.
You think, what were they thinking?
Indeed. Now, our next topic we have covered in great extent because we've done a whole program last week upon it, and that's Rachel Crellin's article, paper, about the Upton Lovell shaman, which we very much enjoyed. Should we just air it a little bit? Did we want to further comment as far as that is concerned?
There are so many aspects to this, and it's going to be lovely to get your take in a minute, Alison. Oh, if I could, your good grief! I thought Chrome had quit on me again.
Nope, still here, mate.
Thank you very much. Yes, I apologise for my sudden disappearance earlier. Basically, it's another case that with modern technology that.
Well, we've got the picture of the paper up in front. Materials and movement, golden stone in process in the Upton Lovell G2A burial.
So you
was
think
brought
of
to
any number of burials where some of the artifacts have been things like cobbles that have been found, and you think, well, that's interesting. Cobble, what's that about? And this is the first time that somebody has actually taken some of those types of stones and put them under a microscope to analyze what's going on. And it turns out that these were all parts of a metalworker's toolkit, and that these stones have been used for fashioning, shaping, flattening gold, amongst other things. Now that it just raises so many issues, not issues, but it's that should we now start looking at, well, every burial and reanalyzing some of these things that, particularly one of the things that I found most compelling in this was that amongst this this toolkit, there were 2 broken battle axes and 1 complete battle axe. And now there's 2 things to consider here. One is that axes that have been found in so many different burials, countless burials, and you think, well, it's not just an axe then, is it? It's a tool for doing all sorts of things. And then you've got broken battle axes as well as 1 complete battle axe. Well, if they're used in the processes, that you can just imagine how this is, I'm going off on one, this is a very Lord of the Ringsian thing, that, well, if you take this, imagine that this warrior actually defeated all these people, and in the battle his axe got broken. Well, to take this hero's axe and actually use it in the process of making something else, that you can imagine that you're imbuing the spirit of this, whatever, into this new artifact. The possibilities are endless. Some of it's unknowable, some of it's distinctly knowable given the time. But it's a discovery that has so many ramifications that are so exciting. The research is wonderful. Alison, what do you think about it?
Yep, the research is wonderful. And it just goes to show the value of going and reanalyzing artifacts that have been in museums for a very long time. And the microware work and the analytical work is, again, exemplary. And I'm very excited about it. And yes, it probably was for gold working. and the broken battle axe heads could have been used as a hammer or anvil or both for gold working process. And
Or
let's not
smoothing,
forget,
I believe. Is that not true? The
Yes.
smoothing of, it's the smooth surfaces that you've got on the polished
yes,
stone.
and particularly if you're going to make sheet gold, you need to hammer it very carefully. And in fact, what they do traditionally for making gold leaf is to put it between two layers of leather or skin, so that they don't split it when they're making it very, very thin. Let's not forget that the Amesbury archer also had a cushion stone, as well as a pair of these basket-shaped ornaments, as though he had the know-how to make gold jewellery. And so the other aspects of that particular grave at Upton Lovell that set it out as being different from a lot of other graves is that there's a lot of bone points, and these were on display at that fantastic Stonehenge exhibition at the British Museum last summer. And the whole shaman suggestion came from the suggestion that maybe if those were fixed to a costume, they would rattle if that person was then doing a dance. And so now to discover that that person may well have been a metal worker as well, and a metal worker in very precious metal, would add to the allure and the magical power that that person was believed to possess.
Yeah, interesting take on the shaman thing. What stymied us in many ways reading through the paper, and I think it was a point quite well made. I don't think she actually made a song and dance about it, but it was the fact that back in the 30s, I think it was, that Stuart Piggott had gone. I mean, what do you do? I get why you do it. But it was a matter of finding those multiple pointy teeth things, and your brain goes to Germany and some of the Mesolithic things that have been interpreted as I've got something here may have been interpreted as that's the lady from
Excuse me.
Bad Nuremberg. Which I think that maybe that illustration is slightly over the top. I don't know, but I mean that's the sort of thing that it gets us comes into mind when this
I have
sort
so
of thing
many
is
issues
discovered
around
in
the whole
ground.
shaman thing.
Yeah.
Because it has to be said that our whole notion of shaman, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm really not. What I'm saying is, how right do we know it to be? Because the only reason that we look at these kinds of artifacts and say they relate to shaman is because, in the last century,
we're answering Graham
or
Allen's
so,
question here. Go on, Rupert. Sorry.
We've seen things like, in indigenous, Native Americans, for example, with everything that we've associated with their medicine men and that kind of stuff. That is entirely what has given us this notion of shaman. Now, if looking at this research, you can see that that these fine copper awls and maybe some of these tusks were used in the shaping of artifacts. I don't have a problem at all with the concept that in exactly the same way as a carpenter or a craftsman today has a belt in which he has chisels and hammers and all the rest of it, that these perforated teeth could have been part of a toolkit that it just will undo that one because that's what I need to use here. I don't think that they have to have been worn as bouncing around shamanistic adornments. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I'm just saying that this research calls those sorts of things into question. James, I do want to pick up on some of James's comments because after asking him to comment, I don't want to miss some of the things that he's been saying. And forgive me, I will say, James, we do want to get you back on again soon as well.
Yeah,
so
please.
so look at your diary. James said, I tend to feel the battle axes were used as anvils because they provided a hard, polished surface needed for gold working. It's an exotic material that was readily available and ideal for the job. He then said a little bit further down, they're not ideally for polishing. He's replying to Graham. As an abrasive agent would be needed. Local sarsen is better. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you were talking about there. I will say another aspect for me is that this research also then brought into question that if you take, for example, in the Wiltshire Museum, and in fact you've got some up in Scotland, the stunningly highly polished jadeite axes from the Alps that are polished to a mirror-like surface almost. And you think, well, are they polished to that extent to give them such an unblemished, smooth surface? Because that way you can use them to smooth gold without having any scratches or anything else in the surface.
Mind you, I probably think they wouldn't take the lateral percussive force safely.
They don't have to be, though, if you're using them for actually smoothing.
That way round.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just...
The question about why jadeite axe heads were polished to a mirror-like sheen is to do with magic. And again, I could give you a 40-minute lecture about the whole thing. And there are 4 great volumes by the Projet Jade team all about why people believed that these axe heads were sacred, divine, living, powerful creatures in their own right. So that's taken us on a slightly different...
But it's an avenue, because we haven't done enough about Projet Jade. I mean, it's fundamental to the whole notion of wealth and the big man society and the megalithic culture. I've called it that. But you know what I mean. Coming up, starting off in Brittany and the whole attraction, all that jadeite coming into that area and being redistributed, having been worked and repolished. It's fundamental in my mind, to why we've got so much stone stuff sticking out of the ground in northwest Europe. And anyway, yeah, it's an avenue we could go down and must too at some point.
We could, and we will be going up Mount Viso when we're doing Göbekli Tepe, Stonehenge.
Yeah,
good one. But it has to be said that we should also just toss into this that none of these concepts are mutually exclusive. That a metal worker could have been a shaman, a metal worker could have been perceived to be a shaman, because after all, if you are the source of the Arthurian legend, that the sword from the stone, if you are this extraordinary person who can take these lumps of rock and turn them into, these people would have been perceived as something quite extraordinary.
And maybe not, I don't know. The problem is, I think what I got mostly from this paper is that the uses of such words as shaman narrow your focus down, whereas looking at the work that was done, looking at the artifacts and the work that was done and the actions that were taking place opens our minds up to possibilities. You to call somebody a shaman, you've shut down the debate. You look at what they were doing, you open it up completely into another area. That's the point made. Whether so in other words, whether they're a shaman or not is irrelevant to our understanding, of who they were. Whatever. We need to move on, he said, authoritatively. And look, you folks that have kept with us to this very point this evening, all hail to you, hats off, fantastic. But you are to be rewarded because, we like a good headline, don't we, Rupert?
We do.
We and towards the end of the prehistory show, as was, we always used to include an item we call a little bit of whimsy. Okay,
Because it's important to bring in a little bit of whimsy.
Indeed, but this is serious.
To the earthy world of archaeology.
This is serious, but I have to say, I think this is one of the best headlines we've ever come across, don't you?
I've sent it to a few people already. Yeah.
Albeit it is from June the 25th, 2021, but
Timeless,
nevertheless.
this one, Michael. Timeless.
Timeless. Yeah, you'll see what I mean. Sticky orange coating on a 6,000-year-old Yukon dart came from a beaver's anal sac.
Of course it did. I tell you, my heart bleeds for that beaver, is all I can say.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, if only we could always come up with a headline like that, to get people's interest and draw us in. So, does the content, though, live up to the promise, Rupert?
Well, I think you should
Let's
describe
find
the
out.
dart.
Here we go.
Because
Yeah,
it's-
6,000-year-old feathered dart. Okay, there's the picture. Well, there's the that's the fletching anyway. 6,000-year-old feathered dart, recently discovered in the Canadian Yukon, was smeared with castoreum. Is that how you pronounce it? A sticky
There it
orange
is.
secretion produced in the anal sacs of beavers. I must stop giggling. I just don't know what it is about. Anyway, this is the first time that castoreum has been chemically identified in the archaeological record. And the dart is the earliest evidence of the substance used on an ancient weapon, scientists recently reported. The researchers aren't sure why the anal secretion was applied to the dart, though it could have been as a way to preserve it, decorate it, or even reinforce it, they said. There is a paper which goes into more detail. Dart is the wrong word. This dart is 6 foot long.
As I said, you've got to feel sorry for that beaver. And
This sounds like a topic where you need to do a deep dive.
It does. And do you know what? It's one of those other aspects of prehistory or history, come to that, where you see something as a reality and you think, well, who discovered that then? And what were they thinking?
Yeah. So
It was a shit job, but somebody had to do it.
And they're in a nutshell. Yeah. It's
so
it's an
they don't
extraordinary
seem to know what it was actually there for, except that they know that the bits of it were in the fletchings and at one of the joints. It may have been at the other joint, I don't know. So whether they're using it as a sort of glue or something, but nobody seems to be aware
it's something
of
that under a different set of circumstances I would have asked James if he knew if it would have been used for a glue, but I don't think that James in southern Britain is going to have come across too many beavers' anal sacs. I might be wrong. You can correct me, James, but oh dear.
Giggling little boys and girls.
Hey,
That's us.
I won't apologise for my schoolboy sense of humour.
If
James says I'm saying nothing. Quite right, man.
apparently there's a scent aspect to castoreum that's sort of used as a flavor or scenting thing. Vanilla. It's like
you just said that slipped there, didn't it? It's not a flavour, Michael. What are you thinking? It's
it's not right at all. But if it had been a small dart, I could imagine. Well, maybe we'll blow dart that animal.
yeah.
there.
You can imagine can't you? Yes, you could imagine that.
And now he
but,
stinks of beaver sack, so maybe that would attract something else along. I don't know.
Smell my perfume.
Oh, we're being bad people now.
Yeah.
Bad people.
Maybe they were hunting beaver.
That's possibly true, but then why would they? That's a bit mean, isn't it? To put the smell of
Magic.
beaver on the very thing that you're using to kill it with. Oh, now you've brought it down to earth, maybe.
Yeah. It's waterproofing for the flight, says Daniel. Oh. Could
Interesting.
be.
We can't argue because the beaver's anal sac is very probably waterproof.
If it was sticky and waterproof, then it might protect the joints.
Actually, all joking aside,
we need to know.
I think. Do you know what? Because for a moment I thought, no, Alison, you might have hit the nail on the head there. But then I have to think, oh, come on, anal sac, really? Why would you choose that if you're hunting beavers? Why would you? Maybe.
Well,
Yeah,
I would
maybe.
think that there are enough people around the world with knowledge of traditional beaver hunting practices who should be able to say whether there are any parallels for this.
Yeah.
And if you're going to hunt a beaver, would it make it easier or more difficult? I don't know. Or was it like sympathetic magic? Yeah.
Maybe.
It's wonderful how our imaginations have taken flight, isn't it?
I'm loving some of these comments that are coming up. I can't read them all out.
No, by orange sticky stuff from a beaver's arse. And with that, look, it's really time to say thank you so much for sticking with us, guys. Thanks for the great comments, and thank you also for the contributions. It's so much appreciated. All goes to a very, very good cause.
Yes.
Alison, thank you so much for sticking with us as well and being such a contribution.
Yes, it's always a joy having you on, Alison. Yeah, very grateful that you've stuck around the whole time as well. That's
I'm always happy to lower the tone.
Well, that's what we need. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what,
Rupert
you're going
and I-
some to lower our tone, so we take our hat off to you even
That's
more.
right. We're so highfalutin.
Yes. Oh dear, oh dear. Yes, folks, don't forget that because there's other things that go on our Patreon page as well. So if you have enjoyed it, have a look at our Patreon site and see if you want to join the crew.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful community on there.
Yeah, with extra stuff. Get your own podcast, your own weekly podcast. Patreon.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Need to talk about next Monday's subject, don't we, Rupert? That's another.
Yes,
tale
indeed.
for another
Yes.
time.
Yeah. James has just said, hopefully, see you for a pint at some point in the year ahead. You certainly will, James.
Yeah.
And I'll buzz you an email shortly because I was serious about getting you on the show again soon. So
cheers, Sibylla. Thank you
super.
for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to press the button that says outro on my thing here. So
Outro.
5,
Yes.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Take care, folks. See ya.
Yeah, the file is not found. I just moved everything around on my hard drives and I pressed the button and nothing happened.
Oh, really? You mean we're here all night?
That's it. We're here like we're stuck. We can't go. The nice little outro thing isn't going to work. Crickets.
Dear,
We've got crickets down here.
Well, it was an unplugged one, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
my motto in life is never be afraid to make an arse of yourself, and I live by that.
Or a beaver's arse.
Indeed, how very appropriate. Yes.
Enough. I'm going to press the button that says finish. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Bye-bye.